Captain Daniel Brooks stood on the bridge of the starship Liberty and watched Earth grow smaller in the distance. His hands shook as he gripped the metal railing. Behind him, thousands of people crowded into the ship's halls and rooms. They carried only what they could hold. Everything else was left behind on the dying world below. The year was 2087, and Earth was ending. Not from war or disease, but from something much worse. The planet was dying slowly, and there was nothing humans could do to stop it. The air was poison. The oceans were acid. The land was dust. Most animals were already dead. Plants could not grow anymore. Daniel had been a ship captain for 20 years. He had seen storms and pirates and engine failures, but nothing had prepared him for this day. Today, he was leading the last humans away from their home forever. "Captain, we have a message from the Zephyrian ship," said Lieutenant Jake Townsend. He was young, maybe 25, with scared eyes. Everyone had scared eyes, now. Daniel nodded. "Put it on the main screen." The screen flickered, and a tall, blue-skinned creature appeared. The Zephyrian had 4 arms and eyes that glowed like stars. When it spoke, its voice was cold and smooth like ice. "Humans of Earth," the alien said, "you have 30 minutes to clear the solar system. After that, any human ship will be destroyed. Earth is now under Zephyrian protection. You will not return." The message ended. Daniel felt his heart sink even deeper. 30 minutes. After thousands of years, humans had 30 minutes to say goodbye to Earth forever. Dr. Lisa Martinez walked onto the bridge. She was the ship's science officer, a smart woman who had spent years studying the aliens. Her face was red from crying, but her voice was steady. "Captain, I need to tell you something important," she said. "Something about the Zephyrians." Daniel looked at her. "What is it, Doctor?" Lisa held up a small device. "I've been studying their ships and their technology. Captain, I don't think Earth died naturally. I think they killed it." The bridge went quiet. Even the humming of the ship's engines seemed to stop. Daniel felt cold all over. "What do you mean?" he asked. Lisa pressed buttons on her device. Numbers and pictures appeared on a small screen. "Look at this data. The poison in our air, the acid in our oceans, the death of our plants. It all started exactly 50 years ago, right when the Zephyrians first came to Earth." Jake Townsend stepped closer. "Are you saying they poisoned our planet?" "I'm saying they've been killing Earth slowly for 50 years, Lisa said. "They made it look like we did it to ourselves. They made us think we were bad at taking care of our world, but it was them all along." Daniel felt anger rise in his chest. "Why would they do that?" "Because they want Earth," Lisa said. "They want our planet, but they can't just take it. The other alien races in the galaxy wouldn't allow that. So they made it look like we destroyed our own home. Now they can claim they're saving Earth from U.S. Amy Peterson, the ship's historian, joined them on the bridge. She was an older woman who had spent her life collecting stories and facts about human history. She carried a large bag full of books and computer files. "Dr. Martinez is right," Amy said. "I've been reading old government files. The Zephyrians offered to help us fix our planet many times. But every time we accepted their help, things got worse." Lisa nodded. "They have technology that can control weather. They can make poison that kills plants but looks natural. They can make our ocean water turn to acid. They've been doing it all slowly, so we wouldn't notice." Daniel looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, other human ships were flying away from Earth. Millions of people were leaving the only home they had ever known. And it was all because of lies. "Can we prove it?" he asked. Lisa shook her head. "Not yet. I need more time to study their technology. I need to get close to their ships and scan them properly. But we have to leave now." The ship's computer spoke in a calm female voice. 20 minutes until departure deadline. Daniel made a decision. Dr. Martinez, I want you to keep studying. This. Find proof. Amy, I want you to write down everything we know. Make copies and put them on every ship. What for? Amy asked. Daniel turned to look at Earth one last time. The planet looked small and blue and beautiful. It was hard to believe it was dying. Because someday we're coming back, he said. And when we do, we're going to show the galaxy what the Zephyrians really are. Jake Thompson stepped forward. Captain, they have better weapons than us. Better ships, better technology. How can we ever fight them? Daniel smiled, but it was a sad smile. We're humans, Jake. We're good at surviving. We're good at learning. We're good at getting stronger when things are hard. Give us time, and we'll find a way. The ship's engines grew louder. Other human ships were beginning to leave the solar system. Families were crying as they watched Earth disappear. Children were asking why they had to leave home. Dr. Martinez looked at her scanner one more time. Captain, I'm picking up something strange. The Zephyrians are moving a lot of ships toward Earth. Big ships. Construction ships. What are they building? Daniel asked. I don't know, Lisa said. But whatever it is, they're starting right now. They couldn't even wait for us to leave. Amy Peterson closed her eyes. They're going to erase us. They're going to make Earth look like we were never there. Daniel felt the anger burning in his chest again. But this time, it didn't make him feel sad. It made him feel strong. Let them try, he said. But they can't erase us from the galaxy. We're going to survive out there. We're going to grow stronger. We're going to remember what they did to us. The computer spoke again. 10 minutes until departure deadline. Daniel picked up the ship's communication device. His voice would be heard on every human ship in the fleet. This is Captain Daniel Brooks to all human vessels. Today we leave Earth, but we don't leave our dreams behind. The Zephyrians think they have won. They think humans are weak and will disappear into the dark. They are wrong. He looked at Lisa and Amy and Jake. They were all listening. We will remember Earth. We will remember what was done to us. And someday, our children or our children's children will come back. They will be stronger than us. They will be smarter than us. And they will take back what was stolen from us. Daniel put down the communication device. Outside, the stars were calling to them. It would be a long journey. Many humans would die before they found new homes. But they would not give up. Set course for the Centauri system, Daniel ordered. It's time to go. The ship turned away from Earth and flew toward the stars. Behind them, their home world grew smaller and smaller until it was just another point of light in the darkness. But Daniel Brooks was right about one thing. Humans were good at surviving. And they had very long memories. 500 years had passed since the great exodus from Earth. Admiral Kevin Scott stood in the command center of New Terra, the first successful human colony. The planet was cold and rocky, nothing like the green Earth his ancestors had described. But it was home now. Kevin was the great-great-grandson of Jake Thompson, the young lieutenant who had served under Captain Daniel Brooks. The story of Earth's last day had been told in his family for generations. Every human child learned about the blue planet and the promise to return. Admiral, we have a message from the Tau Ceti colony, said Commander Linda White. She was Kevin's second in command, a tough woman who had been born on a mining station between the stars. Kevin nodded. What do they say? They've made contact with another species. Not the Zephyrians. Something called the Meraki. They say the Meraki were also forced from their home world. Kevin felt his heart beat faster. In 500 years, humans had only met 3 other alien species. Most had been afraid of them. The Zephyrians had made humans sound like dangerous planet killers. Are the Meraki friendly? Kevin asked. They seem to be, Linda said. They want to trade technology and knowledge. They say they have information about the Zephyrians that we might find interesting. Kevin smiled. This was the first good news he had heard in months. Prepare my ship. We're going to Tau Ceti. The journey to Tau Ceti took 3 weeks. Human. Ships were faster now than they had been during the Exodus, but still much slower than Zephyrian vessels. Kevin spent the time reading reports from other human colonies. The news was mixed. Some colonies were doing well. They had found ways to grow food on strange worlds and build cities in harsh environments. But other colonies had failed. Whole populations had died from disease or starvation or alien attacks. Humans were learning to survive, but it was not easy. They had to be tougher than their ancestors. They had to be smarter. They had to work together or die alone. When Kevin arrived at Tau Ceti, he met the Meraki ambassador. The alien looked like a large bird with 4 wings and golden feathers. Its name was Kree-H, and it spoke in a musical voice. Admiral Scott, Kree-H said, my people have waited long to meet humans. We have much to discuss. Kevin sat down. Across from the alien, what can you tell us about the Zephyrians? Kree-H's feathers changed from gold to dark blue. The same thing that happened to you happened to us, and to the Velgan, and to the Horth, and to 12 other species. Kevin felt cold. 12 other species? The Zephyrians travel through the galaxy, Kree-Ta explained. They find planets with intelligent life. They slowly poison the worlds over many years. Then they arrive as heroes, offering to save the planet. When that fails, they force the people to leave. They claim the worlds for themselves. How many planets do they control? Now? Kevin asked. 16, Kree-Ta said. Including your Earth. They have built a vast empire by lying and stealing. The Galactic Council believes they are protectors of dead worlds. No one knows the truth. Kevin stood up and walked to the window. Outside, human children were playing in the colony's gardens. They had never seen Earth, but they still dreamed of it. What can we do? Kevin asked. Separately, nothing, Kree-Ta said. But together, we might be strong enough to expose their lies. We need proof. We need evidence that the galaxy cannot ignore. Kevin turned back to the alien. What kind of proof? The Zephyrians keep records of their crimes on each world they steal. If we could get those records, we could show the galaxy the truth. Those records would be on heavily guarded Zephyrian worlds, Kevin said. Yes, Kree-Ta agreed. It would be very dangerous, but it might be our only chance. Kevin thought about Captain Daniel Brooks and his promise to return to Earth. 500 years had passed, but humans were still not strong enough to challenge the Zephyrians directly. Maybe working with other species was the answer. I'll need to talk to the other human colonies, Kevin said. This decision affects all of us. Over the next 2 years, Kevin traveled from colony to colony. He met with governors and generals and scientists. He shared Kree-2's information and asked for their support. The response was mixed. Some leaders were excited about the possibility of exposing the Zephyrians. Others were afraid. They had worked hard to build their colonies and didn't want to risk losing everything. Dr. Rachel Stone was one of the scientists who supported Kevin's plan. She was a brilliant geneticist who had been working on ways to help humans adapt to alien environments. Admiral, she said during one meeting, we've been thinking about this problem wrong. We've been trying to become strong enough to fight the Zephyrians with ships and weapons. But maybe we need to become strong in other ways. What do you mean? Kevin asked. The Zephyrians are physically weak, Rachel explained. They depend on their technology for everything. But we're learning to adapt. We're learning to survive in places they couldn't even visit. Rachel showed Kevin her research. She had been studying human genetics and how they changed in different environments. Humans living on high-gravity worlds were becoming stronger. Humans living on low-oxygen worlds were developing better lungs. Humans living on radiation-heavy worlds were becoming resistant to energy weapons. "We're evolving," Rachel said. "Not just culturally, but physically. Give us another 1,000 years, and we might be able to survive anything." Kevin was fascinated. "But will we still be human?" "We'll be better humans," Rachel said. "We'll be humans who can live anywhere, survive anything, and adapt to any challenge." Kevin left that meeting with a new understanding. The journey away from Earth was not just about finding a new home. It was about becoming something new, something stronger. Meanwhile, the alliance with the Meraki was growing. Other displaced species were joining them. The Velgan brought advanced shield technology. The Horth shared their knowledge of energy weapons. Slowly, the alliance was becoming a real threat to Zephyrian power. But the Zephyrians were not ignoring this development. Reports came in of alien ships watching human colonies. Sometimes, colonies would lose contact with the outside galaxy for days or weeks. When communication returned, the colonists would report strange dreams and memory problems. Kevin realized the Zephyrians were getting nervous. They were starting to take action against the humans and their allies. This meant the alliance was working, but it also meant they were running out of time. One night, Kevin received a message from a remote human colony called Haven. The colonists had made an incredible discovery. They had found ancient ruins on their planet, ruins that contained technology older than both humans and Zephyrians. "Admiral," the message said, "we think we've found something that could change everything. You need to come here immediately." Kevin packed his ship and set course for Haven. He had a feeling that this discovery would be the key to everything. The long journey through the stars was about to enter a new phase as his ship flew through the darkness between worlds. Kevin thought about his ancestor, Jake Thompson. The young lieutenant had asked Captain Brooks how humans could ever fight the Zephyrians. Now Kevin was beginning to understand the answer. They would fight not with the weapons and ships of the past, but with the strength and wisdom they had gained during their long exile. The galaxy had made them into something new, something the Zephyrians had never expected. The journey was far from over, but Kevin could feel that they were finally moving toward something important, toward justice, toward home. General Paul Davis stood in the war room of the human flagship Defiance. Around him, holographic displays showed the positions of human fleets across the galaxy. The year was 4587, and humanity was no longer the weak, scattered people who had fled Earth 2,500 years ago. Paul was a tall man with gray hair and scars on his face from battles on a dozen worlds. His great-great-grandmother had been Admiral Kevin Scott's daughter. The Davis family had been soldiers and leaders for generations, all working toward the same goal, returning to Earth. "General, we have reports from all sectors," said Colonel Mary Johnson. She was Paul's chief of staff, a smart woman who had helped unite the scattered human colonies into a single military force. Paul nodded. "What's our strength?" 47 colony worlds, each with its own defense fleet, Mary said. "Total ships, 8,300. Total population, 2 billion humans. We also have the alliance with the Meraki, Velgan, Horth, and 6 other species." Paul smiled. The numbers were impressive, but he knew they were still not enough to challenge the Zephyrians directly. The blue-skinned aliens controlled 16 worlds and had technology that was still superior to human weapons. "What about the special projects?" Paul asked. Mary's expression grew serious. "Dr. Rachel Stone's genetics program has been very successful. We now have humans who can survive in environments that would kill normal people. Some can breathe poison gas. Others can withstand radiation that would melt metal. A few can even survive in space for short periods. Paul had met some of these enhanced humans. They looked mostly normal, but they were incredibly strong and tough. They could think faster and see better than regular humans. They were the next step in human evolution. The technology projects are also progressing, Mary continued. We've reverse-engineered most Zephyrian systems. Our new ships are faster and more heavily armed than anything we had before. We're not equal to them yet, but we're getting close. Paul walked to the main display. It showed a map of the galaxy with human colonies marked in blue Zephyrian worlds. In red, an allied species in green. At the center of the map was a small yellow dot. Earth. What about Earth itself? Paul asked. What do we know about the current situation there? Captain Steve Miller stepped forward. He was one of Paul's best reconnaissance officers, a man who had spent years sneaking close to Zephyrian worlds to gather intelligence. Sir, we've managed to get several spy drones into the Earth system, Steve said. What we found is disturbing. Paul turned to face him. Explain. The Zephyrians have turned Earth into a museum, Steve said. They've preserved everything exactly as it was when we left. Human cities, human buildings, even human vehicles. But there's no life anywhere. No plants. No animals, nothing. Paul felt anger rise in his chest. They're keeping it as a trophy. It's worse than that, sir, Steve continued. They give tours to other alien species. They tell them stories about the violent, destructive humans who destroyed their own planet. They use Earth as proof that some species don't deserve to exist. Paul's hands clenched into fists. The Zephyrians were not just stealing Earth. They were using it to justify their crimes against other species. Sir, Mary said quietly, there's something else. Dr. Susan Clark has been studying the historical records. She thinks she's found proof of what the Zephyrians did to Earth. Dr. Susan Clark was the colony's chief archaeologist. She had spent decades studying the old records that Amy Peterson had saved during the Exodus. Susan was a small woman with sharp eyes and a brilliant mind. What kind of proof? Paul asked. Weather modification devices, Susan said as she joined them. The Zephyrians used machines to change Earth's climate. I found records of these devices in the old government files. They were disguised as research stations, but they were actually weapons. Paul's heart began to beat faster. Can you prove this to the Galactic Council? Susan nodded. If I can. Get to Earth and examine the devices. Yes. The machines should still be there. They would be evidence that the galaxy cannot ignore. Paul looked at the map again. Earth was surrounded by Zephyrian defense fleets. Getting close to the planet would be almost impossible. But if they could prove the Zephyrians' crimes, the entire galaxy would turn against them. What would we need for such a mission? Paul asked. Captain Steve Miller stepped forward. We would need our best ships and our best people. It would be a one-way mission for most of the team. The Zephyrians would throw everything they have at us. Paul nodded slowly. He had known this day would come. The day when humanity would have to risk everything to reclaim their birthright. I'll need to speak with the other human leaders, Paul said, and with our allies. This decision affects everyone. Over the next 6 months, Paul traveled across human space. He met with colony governors, fleet commanders, and civilian leaders. He shared Susan's evidence and Steve's intelligence reports. He asked for their support in the most dangerous mission humanity had ever attempted. The response was unanimous. Every human colony, every human fleet, every human leader agreed. It was time to go home. Ambassador Maria Lopez was one of the strongest supporters of the mission. She had been working with the alien allies for years, building trust and sharing technology. She was a skilled diplomat who could speak 12 different alien languages. "General," Maria said during one meeting, "our allies are ready to support us. The Meraki will provide their stealth technology. The Velgan will share their shield generators. The Horth will give us their best weapons." Paul was impressed. "What do they want in return?" "They want the same thing we do," Maria said. "Justice. The Zephyrians have hurt all of us. If we can expose their crimes, it will free every species they've oppressed." Paul began to understand that this mission was about more than just reclaiming Earth. It was about stopping the Zephyrians from hurting other species. It was about justice for the entire galaxy. The planning took 2 years. Human engineers worked with alien scientists to design new weapons and ships. Enhanced humans trained for combat in Earth's environment. Spy networks gathered intelligence about Zephyrian defenses. Dr. Helen Wright, the technology development team. She was a brilliant scientist who had been working on ways to combine human and alien technology. Her team had created weapons that could pierce Zephyrian shields and ships that could match Zephyrian speed. "General," Helen said during one briefing, "we've made a breakthrough. We've figured out how to disrupt Zephyrian communication systems. If we can get close enough, we can cut off their ability to coordinate their defenses." Paul smiled. "How close do we need to get?" "Within 1 light year of Earth," Helen said. "But once we activate the disruption field, they'll know we're coming. We'll have maybe 6 hours before they adapt to it." Paul nodded. 6 hours to travel 1 light year. Fight through the Zephyrian fleet, land on Earth, find the evidence, and broadcast it to the galaxy. It seemed impossible, but humans had done impossible things before. As the mission planning continued, Paul received regular reports from spy networks across the galaxy. The Zephyrians were getting nervous. They were moving more ships to defend their stolen worlds. They were increasing security around Earth. But Paul also received encouraging news. Other species were beginning to question the Zephyrian story. Some were starting to investigate their own homeworlds, looking for evidence of Zephyrian interference. One night, Paul stood alone in his quarters, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, the blue world his ancestors had called home. In a few months, he would lead the largest human fleet in history back to that world. Paul thought about Captain Daniel Brooks and his promise to return. He thought about Admiral Kevin Scott and his alliance with alien species. He thought about Dr. Rachel Stone and her work to make humans stronger. All of their work, all of their sacrifice, all of their dreams had led to this moment. Humanity was finally ready to go home, but Paul knew the journey would not be easy. Many humans would die in the coming battle. Some ships would never return. The Zephyrians would fight desperately to protect their lives. Still, Paul felt confident. Humans had survived 3,000 years of exile. They had grown stronger and smarter and more united. They had found allies among the stars and learned to work together. The storm was gathering, and soon it would be time to strike. Earth was waiting, and the truth would finally be told. Admiral John Carter stood on the bridge of the massive battleship Vindication as it dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. Behind him, the largest human fleet in history emerged from the darkness between stars. 3,000 ships carrying the hopes and dreams of every human in the galaxy. John was the great-grandson of General Paul Davis, and he carried the weight of 3,000 years of human exile on his shoulders. His fleet included ships from every human colony, crewed by volunteers who knew they might never return home. But they had come anyway, because Earth was calling them. "Admiral, we're receiving multiple contacts," reported Captain Sarah Johnson, the fleet's tactical officer. She was the daughter of Mary Johnson, who had served under General Davis. Zephyrian Defense Fleet, approximately 800 ships, moving to intercept. John nodded calmly. They had expected this. The Zephyrians had been preparing for this day for decades, ever since their spies had reported human military buildup. Activate the disruption field. John ordered. Dr. Helen Wright, now an old woman but still brilliant, operated the controls from her station. Disruption field active, Admiral. Zephyrian communications are being jammed across the system. The plan was simple, in concept, but incredibly difficult to execute. The human fleet would punch through the Zephyrian defenses, while a smaller force of stealth ships, led by Colonel Ryan Bell, would land on Earth's surface. Their mission was to find and activate the ancient weather control devices that proved Zephyrian guilt. All ships, this is Admiral Carter, John announced over the fleet communications. Today we return to the world our ancestors called home. Today we expose the lies that have kept us in exile for 3,000 years. Today we prove that humanity deserves to exist among the stars. The Zephyrian fleet was impressive. Their ships were sleek and powerful, with energy weapons that could destroy a human vessel in seconds. But they had grown comfortable over the centuries. They had not fought a real war in 1,000 years. Humans, on the other hand, had been fighting for survival every day of their exile. They had learned to be tough, clever, and absolutely determined. They had also learned to work together in ways the Zephyrians had never imagined. Meraki stealth ships are in position, reported Commander Linda White, the fleet's communications officer. Velgan shield generators are online. Horth weapon systems are charged and ready. John smiled. The alliance that had started with Admiral Kevin Scott was now a powerful military force. 12 different species had sent ships to support humanity's return to Earth. They all wanted to see the Zephyrians exposed as the criminals they were. Begin the assault, John ordered. The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships, enhanced with alien technology, tore through Zephyrian formations with speed and precision. The enhanced humans crewing the ships could react faster than normal people, making their vessels nearly impossible to hit. Lieutenant Sarah Johnson, a pilot in the elite fighter squadron, dove her ship through a cloud of Zephyrian interceptors. She was one of Dr. Rachel Stone's enhanced humans, with reflexes fast enough to dodge energy blasts and eyes sharp enough to see targets from impossible distances. This is for Earth, she shouted as her weapons destroyed 3 enemy ships in seconds. But the Zephyrians were not helpless. Their ships were still technologically advanced, and they fought with the desperation of beings who knew their empire was at stake. Energy beams lit up the darkness of space as the two fleets clashed. Meanwhile, Colonel Ryan Bell led his stealth force toward Earth's surface. His ships were invisible to Zephyrian sensors, thanks to Meraki technology, but they still had to be careful. Earth was surrounded by defense satellites and automated weapons. Colonel, we're approaching the first target site, reported Sergeant Tom Wilson, Bell's second in command. The weather control station should be about 2 miles from the landing zone. Ryan nodded. According to Dr. Susan Clark's research, there were 12 weather control stations hidden around Earth. Each one was disguised as a research facility, but they were actually the weapons the Zephyrians had used to poison the planet. Remember, Ryan told his team, we need to activate at least one station and broadcast its data to the galaxy. If we can prove the Zephyrians artificially destroyed Earth's climate, every species in the galaxy will turn against them. The stealth ships landed in what had once been North America. The landscape was exactly as humans had left it 3,000 years ago, preserved by Zephyrian technology. But there was no life anywhere. No trees, no grass, no birds. Earth was a beautiful corpse. Ryan's team moved quickly across the empty terrain. They found the weather control station buried under what appeared to be a natural hill. But when they dug into it, they discovered sophisticated machinery that could control wind patterns, temperature, and atmospheric composition. Dr. Clark was right, Ryan said as he examined the equipment. These machines had been running for 3,000 years. They're still pumping poison into the atmosphere. Meanwhile, the space battle was reaching its climax. Admiral Carter's fleet had broken through the outer Zephyrian defenses, but at a heavy cost. Nearly 1,000 human ships had been destroyed, and thousands of crew members were dead or missing. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Earth," reported Captain Sarah Johnson. "It's Colonel Bell." John's heart raced. "Put him through." Ryan's voice crackled over the communication system. "Admiral, we've found it. The weather control station is exactly where Dr. Clark said it would be. We're activating it now and preparing to broadcast the data." John felt a wave of relief wash over him. "Outstanding, Colonel. How long do you need?" "Give us 10 minutes, Ryan said. "We need to upload the data to our ships and transmit it to every communication relay in the galaxy." John looked at the tactical display. The Zephyrians were regrouping for another attack. Their reinforcements were arriving from other systems. The human fleet was outnumbered and running low on ammunition. "All ships, this is Admiral Carter," John announced. "We need to hold this position for 10 more minutes. Whatever it takes, we protect Colonel Bell's transmission." The final phase of the battle was the most intense. Zephyrian ships threw everything they had at the human fleet. Energy weapons lit up the space around Earth like a deadly fireworks display. Human ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light, but the humans held their ground. Enhanced pilots pushed their ships beyond normal limits. Allied vessels provided covering fire and shield support. Engineers worked desperately to keep damaged ships fighting. On Earth's surface, Ryan's team was working frantically to complete their mission. They had found not just evidence of weather control, but detailed records of the Zephyrian plan, too. Steel Earth. The data included similar records from other worlds the Zephyrians had conquered. "Colonel, we're ready to transmit," reported Sergeant Wilson. Ryan nodded. "Do it. Send everything to every communication relay in the galaxy. Make sure every species knows what the Zephyrians have done." The transmission went out on every frequency, in every language, to every corner of the galaxy. The data showed clearly that the Zephyrians had deliberately destroyed Earth's climate. It showed they had done the same thing to 16 other worlds. It showed that they were not protectors of dead planets, but the killers of living ones. Within hours, the transmission was being received by governments and news organizations across the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire, built on lies and deception, began to crumble as the truth spread. "Admiral," Captain Johnson reported, "we're receiving messages from across the galaxy. The Zephyrian government is demanding we stop the transmission. Other species are demanding explanations from the Zephyrians. The Galactic Council is calling for an emergency session." John smiled. They had done it. After 3,000 years of exile, humanity had finally proven their innocence and exposed the Zephyrian crimes. But the battle was not over. The Zephyrian fleet, now desperate and furious, was preparing for one final assault. They knew their empire was finished, but they still had enough firepower to destroy the human fleet. "All ships, prepare for final engagement," John ordered. "We've come too far to give up now." The last battle was brief but savage. The Zephyrians fought with the fury of cornered animals, but they were facing humans who had spent 3,000 years preparing for this moment. Humans who had grown stronger, smarter, and more determined through their long exile. When the smoke cleared, the Zephyrian fleet was destroyed. Earth was free, and the truth was spreading across the galaxy like wildfire. John looked out at the blue world his ancestors had called home. It was still poisoned and lifeless, but it was theirs again. And now they had the knowledge and technology to bring it back to life. The long journey home was finally over. The vindication was complete. President Lisa Carter stood in the observation deck of the newly built Earth Station, watching the sunrise over the Pacific Ocean. 3 years had passed since the Great Battle, and Earth was beginning to look alive again. Green patches of new. Forest covered the continents, and the oceans were slowly losing their acidic poison. Lisa was Admiral John Carter's daughter, and she had been elected as the first president of the restored Earth government. It was a job that required incredible patience and determination, but she was surrounded by the best people humanity had to offer. "Madam President, the morning reports are ready," said Dr. Michael Torres, the director of the Earth Restoration Project. He was a tall man with kind eyes and hands that were always dirty from working in the soil. Lisa nodded. "How are the forests doing?" "Better than we hoped," Michael said with a smile. "The new trees are growing faster than normal Earth trees. They're also more resistant to the remaining toxins in the soil. We should have full forest coverage within 10 years. Lisa felt a warm feeling in her chest. The trees were a gift from the Velgan people, who had developed them specifically for damaged worlds. They were beautiful, with silver bark and leaves that changed color with the seasons. "What about the oceans?" Lisa asked. "The cleanup is ahead of schedule," Michael reported. "The Meraki water purification systems are working perfectly. We've already seen the first fish being born in Earth's oceans in 3,000 years. Lisa smiled. The fish were descendants of species that had been preserved in frozen samples during the Exodus. Human scientists had been carefully reintroducing them to the healing oceans. "And the weather control stations?" Lisa asked. "All 12 stations have been converted from weapons to tools," Michael said. "Instead of poisoning the atmosphere, they're now helping to clean it. Dr. Susan Clark estimates the air will be safe for normal humans to breathe within 5 years." Lisa nodded. Susan Clark had become something of a hero after her research had proved the Zephyrian crimes. She now led the team that was turning the alien weapons into instruments of healing. "Madam President, you have a visitor," said Secretary Janet Adams, Lisa's chief of staff. "Ambassador Maria Lopez is here with representatives from the Galactic Council." Lisa straightened her clothes and walked to the meeting room. Maria Lopez was now one of the most important diplomats in the galaxy. She had been instrumental in organizing the coalition that had brought down the Zephyrian Empire. "Maria, it's good to see you," Lisa said as she entered the room. Maria smiled. "Lisa, I'd like you to meet Council Leader Zanvel of the Horth and Council Leader Merkata of the Velgan. They have something important to discuss with you." The two aliens stood and bowed respectfully. Lisa had learned that this was a sign of deep respect in galactic culture. No one had ever bowed to humans before the revelation of Zephyrian crimes. "President Carter," Zanvel said in his deep, rumbling voice, "the Galactic Council has completed its investigation of the Zephyrian Empire. We have found evidence of crimes against 47 different species across the galaxy." Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. 47? We thought it was only 16. The Zephyrians were very good at hiding their crimes, Merkata explained. But once we knew what to look for, we found evidence everywhere. They have been stealing worlds for over 10,000 years. Maria stepped forward. "The Council is prepared to make a formal announcement. The Zephyrian Empire will be dissolved. All stolen worlds will be returned to their original species, and the Zephyrians themselves will be relocated to a prison planet." Lisa felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Justice was finally being served, but it had taken so long and cost so much suffering. "What about the species that are extinct?" Lisa asked. "Some of the races the Zephyrians destroyed are gone forever. Those worlds will be given to species that need new homes," Zanvel said. "The galaxy has learned much from humanity's example. We will help displaced peoples find new worlds and build new lives." Lisa nodded. It was not perfect justice, but it was the best the galaxy could do. There is something else, Mercata said. The Council wants to offer Earth a permanent seat on the galactic government. Humanity has proven itself worthy of leadership. Lisa was stunned. For 3,000 years, humans had been outcasts, blamed for destroying their own world. Now they were being invited to help govern the galaxy. I will need to discuss this with the other human colonies, Lisa said. This decision affects all of humanity. Over the following months, Lisa traveled across human space, meeting with the leaders of every colony. The response was unanimous. Humanity would accept the Galactic Council's offer, but only if they could continue to help other displaced species. Dr. Alex Morgan, Earth's chief historian, was documenting everything for future generations. He was a young man with a passion for preserving human stories and experiences. President Carter, Alex said during one of their meetings, "I've been studying the records from the exile years. Do you know what I find most impressive?" Lisa shook her head. What? Humanity never forgot, Alex said. For 3,000 years, every generation remembered Earth. Every generation worked toward the goal of returning. That level of dedication is almost unheard of in galactic history. Lisa smiled. We're stubborn people, Alex. When we make a promise, we keep it. It's more than that, Alex said. Other species have been conquered and scattered. Most of them give up after a few generations. They accept their fate and move on. But humans never gave up. You never stopped believing you could come home. Lisa thought about Captain Daniel Brooks and his promise to return. She thought about Admiral Kevin Scott and his alliance with alien species. She thought about General Paul Davis and his military preparations. She thought about her father, Admiral John Carter, and his courage in the final battle. We had good teachers, Lisa said. Every generation built on the work of the previous one. We learned from our mistakes and grew stronger. As Earth continued to heal, humans began to return from the colonies. Some came to help with the restoration work. Others came simply to see the world their ancestors had described in stories. All of them were amazed by what they found. The new Earth was more beautiful than the old one had ever been. The forests were lusher, the oceans clearer, the sky brighter. Human and alien technology had combined to create something wonderful. But the most important change was not in the planet itself. It was in the people. Humans had learned to work with other species as equals. They had learned that diversity made them stronger, not weaker. Children born on Earth after the restoration grew up speaking multiple alien languages. They played with alien children who visited with their parents. They learned about the galaxy, not as a hostile place, but as a community they were part of. Madam President, Dr. Torres said one morning, we've reached a milestone. The atmospheric toxin levels have dropped below safe limits. Normal humans can now breathe Earth's air without protective equipment. Lisa felt tears in her eyes. Are you sure? Absolutely, Torres said. Earth is fully habitable again. Better than habitable. It's a paradise. Lisa walked outside the station without her breathing mask for the first time in her life. The air was clean and sweet, filled with the scent of growing things. She could hear birds singing in the trees and the sound of waves on the shore. Evening, Lisa stood in the same spot where Captain Daniel Brooks had watched Earth disappear 3,000 years ago. But now she was watching ships arrive, not depart. Human colonists were coming home. Alien visitors were coming to see the restored world. Earth was alive again. We did it, Lisa whispered to the stars. We kept the promise. As she stood there, Lisa thought about all the generations that had lived and died without seeing this moment. Captain Daniel Brooks, who had led the Exodus with such courage. Admiral Kevin Scott, who had built the first alliances. Dr. Rachel Stone, who had made humans stronger. General Paul Davis, who had prepared for war. Her own father, Admiral John Carter, who had led the final battle. They were all gone now, but their work lived on. Their sacrifices had made this moment possible. Earth was home again, and humanity had proven itself worthy of that home. A young girl ran up to Lisa, laughing as she chased a butterfly through the restored gardens. The child had been born on Earth after the restoration, and she would never know the pain of exile. She would grow up in a galaxy where humans were respected, where Earth was beautiful, and where the future was bright with possibility. "Excuse me," the girl said, looking up at Lisa with curious eyes. "Are you the president?" Lisa smiled and knelt down to the child's level. "Yes, I am. What's your name?" "I'm Emma," the girl said. "My teacher says you helped bring Earth back to life. Is that true?" Lisa looked around at the green forests, the clean oceans, and the bright sky. She thought about all the people who had worked to make this possible, all the species who had helped, all the generations who had never given up hope. "We all did it together, Emma," Lisa said. "Every human who ever dreamed of coming home. Every alien friend who helped us along the way. Every person who refused to give up when things looked impossible." Emma nodded seriously, as if she understood something important. Then she smiled and ran back to chase her butterfly. Lisa stood up and looked at the stars again. Somewhere out there, other species were still struggling, still